In this video, I tried Ruby after she received huge buffs. Her spell vamp was increased from 5% at all levels to 6 to 20%. This means her spell vamp in the late game is really high just from her passive alone. Although in exchange, the defense she gets after dashing when using a skill was reduced. But I still think this is a huge buff for Ruby. And that's just the direct buff. She also got a lot of indirect buffs. I was also up against Yujin in the EXP lane in this match, and he also received some direct and indirect buffs. You really have to be careful in the early game when you're laning against Yujin, especially at level 1. Don't go near him if he hasn't used any skill yet. Some Yujin players are sneaky. They won't upgrade any skill right away at level 1. If their lane opponent plays aggressively, they'll pick the second skill to instantly activate their passive, and if that happens, there's a high chance he can kill you. I only fought him here once I reached level 4, and there were a lot of minions nearby. We both have an advantage when fighting near minions anyway. But here I almost died, though I didn't recall because I trusted my spell vamp. Yuzhong's moves are pretty easy to read, and since he's not a long-range hero, I could still lifesteal from the minions. And yeah, I even managed to kill him there because he got baited into diving me under the turret. Then here I helped Glue take down Atlas. Just kidding, that wasn't intentional. I didn't expect my first skill to actually reach him. So Ruby's spell vamp now scales with her level. The higher your level, the higher your spell vamp. That's why it's really important for her now to level up as quickly as possible. Take as much EXP from crabs and minions as you can to level up fast. And I think out of all the heroes that got buffed, Ruby received one of the biggest, if not the biggest buff. Because take note that the fighter emblem and Festival of Blood were also buffed, which is the main emblem Ruby uses. I think that buff and the direct buff she received are already enough to push Ruby to the top. But even beyond that, life banner items got nerfed, brute force breastplate got buffed, and now only suppression effects can really lock her down. So use her now while she's not an autoban in ranked yet. Because sooner or later, more players will realize that Ruby is broken right now. By the way, here's the emblem I used for her. For me, this is the best emblem setup for Ruby. But you can also modify it based on your preference. What really matters is using the fighter emblem and Festival of Blood. Those are the most important. Here's the item build that I think fits Ruby best. It gives her enough sustain and damage, and with this build, she already reaches the maximum 40% cooldown reduction. I originally planned to build Twilight Armor as an anti-burst item, but I didn't end up needing it in this game since no one could burst me down. Still, it's a great item because it got buffed too. It now gives you 20% of your max HP when your health drops below 30%, which is a huge help for Ruby to avoid getting burst instantly. And when I think about it, that's also an indirect nerf to Masha. Things are really starting to look bad for her. Oracle and Queen's Wings are still good on Ruby, but it all depends on your preference. You can actually build all of those sustain items and still get up to 60% cooldown reduction in the late game, though it's capped at 40%. It does feel a bit wasteful to build more CDR when you're already maxed out, but it's still fine. You can always swap Queen's Wings or Oracle in place of Twilight Armor or even your boots. Imagine Ruby having 50% crowd control reduction just from tough boots and max stacks of brute force. And that even affects airborne. Who can stop Ruby in the late game now? It's incredibly hard, especially during team fights if your team doesn't have any suppression. Anyways, did you also notice how weird some airborne effects look? Especially when you have 50% resilience? Like Zuxin's airborne? It looks really strange. The marksman here was hilarious, completely unaware of his surroundings, even when Glue had already locked onto him.
Initiate retreat. No, I'm not.
Mages who build Glowing Wand are now a bit less annoying too, since that item was unfair.
As it should be.
Gather up the Lord! Legendary!
I also noticed that some tanks got really good buffs too, like Atlas. He feels so solid to use now because it's much easier to freeze enemies. Before it was almost unnoticeable, but now it actually makes a big impact. And if you want to burst down an enemy, it's better not to dash right after using a skill because it'll only delay your combo unless they're about to escape. In that case, you should dash in the direction they're running to. Also, Endless Battle is still really good on Ruby even though it no longer gives hybrid lifesteal, and now provides HP regen on basic attacks instead. If you think about it, she actually has almost the same mechanics as Alucard. That's why they have nearly the same build. War Axe and Endless Battle work really well on both of them. They both need spell vamp, cooldown reduction, and they rely on dashing and basic attacking right after using skills. But the main difference is that Ruby has tons of crowd control, while Alucard has almost none. On the other hand, Alucard deals more damage and can easily chase down enemies. Ruby is slower in comparison, but she makes up for it with her control and sustain. That's why Ruby is a good matchup against short-range heroes. She struggles more against heroes who can target her from a distance. Especially if her skills don't land, she won't be able to lifesteal, which makes it hard for her to sustain in fights. I played again, and this time my lane opponent was Cho. I kept cutting the lane throughout the game. Also, I always go for Hunter Strike as my first item instead of War Axe. I think it's a good choice so Ruby can have some early damage right away. It works pretty well overall. If the enemies are mostly squishy and teamfights don't last long, it's better to go for burst damage. But of course, War Axe is still important for her, especially when you're up against tanky heroes, since those fights tend to last longer. That's when War Axe and Brute Force really shine. I was able to cut the lane at top, so it was totally fine that I ended up all the way in the bottom lane. Just look, Cho couldn't do anything while I was already helping in the team fight, and even managed to take all the turret gold. We ended up swapping lanes with the marksman here, and just look at Ruby's damage and sustain, it's insane. After I took down the enemy marksman, I immediately pushed the turret since there was no one else came to defend it. I even managed to push the enemy's tier 2 turret in the bottom lane. No one came to defend at all. Rafaela keeps using her special skill in this match, and I think she's going to be insanely overpowered in the late game, especially when it's crucial not to lose their strongest teammate. That's why I think she should always be the first target to eliminate. Now imagine if she's paired with a teammate like Faramis. Just when you thought Rafaela's the only one left defending, suddenly they're back to 3. And I can already see toxic duos or trios abusing that. They'll just use it on each other and ignore the rest of the team. That's crazy. So we ended up winning this game, and all I can say about Ruby is that she became overpowered, especially in teamfights. And when her teammate's hero lineup complements her well, like if it's teamfight oriented, she becomes even more unstoppable.